you done now?
Be a dream if I could take you up in paradise up above. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love, life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again, shaboom, and hope we'll meet again. Oh, life could be a dream. If only
It's not all that shocking. These folks are just having a good time.
If you would let me spend my whole life loving you, life could be a dream, sweet. Oh, every time I look at
Oh
you,
my God.
Excuse me.
if I could take you up in paradise up above, if you would tell me I'm
This man's drunk. Dead drunk.
Dead right.
You're not gonna drive home, are you?
He won't be driving home, officer, I promise you that.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Clue the Movie Podcast, where we break down the 1985 Caucasian movie cut 1 minute at a time. And it's our first official podcast, new content of 2024.
We're back
from the flu, not the future,
back
but
from
the
the
flu.
not from the future, and not back from the dead. Although felt like it, but here we are back. Clip 2024.
Now, let me ask you this, Jeff. There's a
Hey,
lot of
Brad.
stuff. We're going to talk about minute 62 of Clue the Movie. We have to. Obviously, it's our
Yeah.
job.
Shaboom.
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 But I need to ask, so first off, is this your first flu experience?
Oh no,
No, you've had it.
unfortunately, no.
Okay.
No, this is weathered territory, to the point where like you could see it coming and you go, oh, this is gonna be bad. And it was, but feeling fantastic. 2024 can only get better, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's onward and upward, Jeff, as they say.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for like being very creative with the content in 2024.
Hey, you know
It was
what?
nice. When Brad met Jeff, that was adorable.
I thought it was because that really was like our first ever conversation, and it happened to be
That's right.
recorded.
That's right. That's technology, man. That's how it is now. People's first conversations are all documented. You can go back and watch the relationship grow.
And you've seen it grow between you and I because we started this show in 2022. It is 2024. Doesn't even seem like a real thing. We are rounding third here. We're in the last third of this pod, as it were.
When you see people starting to make out with corpses, you know you're getting close to the end.
That's
the minute we're on right now, folks.
Yeah, I want to jump into the minute here in just 1 second, but also we did have a new review that I wanted to read.
Oh, cool.
On the Apple Podcast. Now, we could have reviews on Spotify. I don't really know how to access them. So I
don't either.
I'm an Apple Podcast.
So if you're reviewing on Spotify, copy paste and send to
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcasts. Yeah, put it everywhere.
Okay.
No one sees it.
So this came on December the 2nd, 2023. So it's last year's news. But the reviewer's name is Cluevian Amy. Okay.
I like her already.
5 stars.
I really like her now.
The title, "You Guys Are Killing Me!" Exclamation point. Could go a different way.
That's true.
We don't know. And here's the thing. Killing and me are capitalized. So is like that our name?
Wow.
Is that
All
our duo
caps for
name?
that.
Are we killing me? Is that the name of our band? You guys are killing me. Welcome to the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, you wanted the best. You got these guys. Ladies and gentlemen, killing me.
Metal. So here is the review from Cluedo and Amy. Fairly new listener here, but I'm hooked in a bad way. 2 exclamation points. I've loved Clue since watching it at a slumber party in 1987. I have changed some of passwords to reflect my quote Cluvian status. I don't know
That
if
itself is it.
I don't know.
Itself is a clue.
That is a clue itself.
Yeah. Figure out my password, people.
You guys do a phenomenal job at breaking down the minutes of the movie and relaying details. I have bought the documentary, bought John Hatch's book, and now I'm listening to Back to the Future, the podcast. Also, subscribe to the Fletch podcast. So shout out to Laker Jim.
Hey.
Any fan of 80s movies should be listening to this podcast. Love the banter and stories. Keep the episodes coming. I mean, come on, people.
And you know what? We will keep it's settled. Let's record something today. Let's
do something now.
Thank you, Cluvy and Amy. You know, Brad Gilmore also has a book. If you're following that train of thought, a few books, but if you're just in the Back to the Future 80s mode, there you go.
So my last thing that I want to share before.
That's great. Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so much, Cluvy and Amy.
That's great.
Last thing I want to share before we jump into the minute is, so I'm not going to give away my geographic location because some people say that's not wise, right? So I won't say the street in which I inhabit, but
good.
My neighbors,
Sniper Wolf might find you.
My neighbors, most of the time in neighborly things, it's a more of a hi and goodbye relationship, right? Like it's a, hey, good morning to your neighbor, hey, good night, neighbor.
Oh,
nice
you're
to see
nicer
you,
than I
neighbor.
am.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm the neighbor that looks out the window and waits for them to go inside and then runs to the car. And I get mad when they come out like, you saw me. You saw me. It's my turn.
Oh man, Jeff.
And then I'll drive in and I'll sit in the car and wait for them to go in before that could take days. I'll just listen to the Fletchcast while I wait.
It's good. It's good.
But yeah, so you're obviously of the duo here. Brad is the nicer one, and I think you can kind of even tell from the voices. And then Jeff is the one that's like not. Anyway, so hi neighbor. This is gonna. I have a feeling this story might prove my point. But
maybe you're not. So anyway, to backtrack slightly, so I had a goodbye relationship with my neighbors. My wife threw a lovely Halloween party in October. Lovely in the backyard, beautiful tables, floral arrangements. It was a whole dinner thing. Outdoors, we had a projector on the side of the house playing the Universal horror movies, monster movies from back in the day. Beautifully done. And she invited the neighbors. Okay. So the neighbors come over. One of them was dressed as a cat. And the other one, though, the gentleman was dressed as Darth Helmet. Okay. From Spaceballs.
Dark Helmet.
I'm sorry. Dark Helmet.
Yeah.
Spaceballs.
Okay. I like that. Cool.
So I see this and I go, okay. This guy, he might be my kind of guy, But I didn't have a lot of time at the party to discuss with him because, you're hosting. There's like 40 people in your home. You're making your rounds. You're showing the house. Hey, here's where I do the podcast with Jeff Smith. Hey, here's this, and this, right?
Again, this is a problem I've never had. Have to, first of all, have anybody at the house, but 40 sounds terrible, and also being cordial. But again, this is now a definite Brad problem, but go ahead.
So anyway, we decide we're going to go to dinner with our neighbors here last week. Okay.
With Dark Helmet and the cat.
With Dark Helmet and the cat. And we go out to a sushi establishment. Now, first of all, this is how trusting my neighbors are. They say, we are not sushi people. We've never really had sushi, but we trust in you all, and we're going to follow your lead into the sushi realm. Now, these are trusting folks, okay? Now,
why do they trust you?
I don't know.
What what impression did you give? The nice house, the backyard, the monster movies,
It must have
the
been,
podcast studio where you do a podcast with Jeff Smith?
it must have been a nice combination. So we go to dinner, and we are sitting down, and to me, a good icebreaker is like, hey, I remember you have the dark helmet fit. What is your favorite movie? Like, are you is Spaceballs your favorite movie?
Is
Where
it
are you at?
80s? Is it Mel Brooks?
Right. He
Is it Rick
said
Moranis?
he said he and his wife, the cat, they have the same favorite movie. Okay, and this is what they drop on me. Our favorite movie is Back to the Future. Oh my gosh, Jeff Smith.
Oh my gosh.
I looked over at Farrah, my wife.
Break.
I looked back at them. I said, "Do you know who I am? Do you know what you just did? You just opened Pandora's box." Okay? So we started,
And my UPS box over here where I have copies of my book for sale.
right here on my bookshelf. I have my book on my
right.
bookshelf. That's not pretentious.
Cha-ching.
Oh,
Look what's like 2 feet away from me at all times.
My
I'm
God.
holding a copy of Who Done It, the Clue documentary right now, folks. It's always there just to remind me of what we're talking about. Okay,
so then I'm
Back to
thinking,
the Future.
okay, they're 80s people,
this has got to be a setup.
right? They're 80s
I don't
people,
know.
right? And so I go, okay, Back to the Future is your favorite, so you're an 80s fan. So I follow up. I say, do you like Fletch? And they go, we love Fletch. Love it. We quote it to each other all the time. I'm losing it at this point. I'm going, where have you been all my life?
Right. You've been wasting all this time just saying hi and bye.
Yeah, you've been next door, and we could have been having these
You could
conversations.
have been saying you are my density like every time, and like,
Yes.
that's from the movie.
Yes, or I'll have a steak sandwich, a Bloody Mary, and a steak sandwich, right? I mean, we could have these great quotes. It's all ball bearings these days. And then I ask, have you seen Clue the movie?
Right.
Never seen it. Never seen it.
Whoa. And you said, I've got 62 episodes of content to catch you up on, my friend.
So you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna get one of those inflatable screens that are in that you can have like a projector. I'm gonna set up a situation. Their kids are gonna come, and we're gonna do a screening of Clue the movie, and I'm going to see if I can convince Dark Helmet and the cat to give me to give me their immediate review of Clue the movie that we can share on this podcast.
Yes. When are you going to do this?
So this is in the coming weeks. I'm organizing it as we speak.
Oh my gosh, I need to buy a plane ticket now.
Oh, this would be great, Jeff. This would be a great time for you to come down. Hey, you just watched this? This guy did a documentary on it.
Yeah.
All right.
Right. I'll just peek in and go, want to know more?
Now, having said all of that.
Well, good for... Yes, that's amazing.
Having said all of that.
At the same time,
it's questionable.
What have they been doing? What have they been doing all their lives?
It's questionable. I'll be honest with you. It's very questionable.
Yeah.
How do you go Back to the Future? How do you go Fletch, but no Clue? You know?
That's a weird little pocket that didn't happen. They obviously had heard of it. Is it more him or her? Or it's the combo?
It seems like...
Because she was just a cat.
No, but she's definitely in on the 80s. 100% in on the 80s. But I think the cat's like an easy costume. That's easy. It's not a lot of work.
Sure,
people understand it. Yeah. It's good. My wife's been a cat many times. Dark Helmet was good. You have to have that helmet on deck. Like, that's something you have in the closet.
Right. And probably do it more than once. Was the mask down or up for the party?
Up.
Did he have glasses?
Yes. He wears glasses, though.
Did he have coffee?
No coffee.
Because he always drinks coffee when he looks at radar.
No coffee.
Everybody knows that.
But I was going to go as Pizza the Hut, and it would have been awkward. Now, we should dive, though, into Clue the movie.
Oh, yeah, Clue.
62. Because we are.
Yeah, we're a little out of practice, folks. Sorry. Yeah. So here we have the lovely. My New Year's resolution was going to be less rants.
You're doing a hell of a job.
That being said, the actor that played Crazy Joe Davola just passed away from Seinfeld. We talk about that a lot.
No way.
He just passed away yesterday, I think.
Oh, rest in peace.
I know. The tie-in there is that the episode of Seinfeld. Sorry, everybody. We will get to Clue, but it's been a while. We've had like 3 weeks off.
We're all over the place.
The episode of Seinfeld where Crazy Joe Davola lures Elaine into his apartment and locks the door is pretty scary.
That is the one where they're going. Is that the one where? No, that's not the one where he's the clown.
The opera? Yeah. That is the one where it's the clown. Okay. Yeah, and then she goes to his apartment. They don't know that she's dating Joey.
Right, and doesn't know it's Crazy Joe.
Joe Davola is I guess a comedian, which is weird. That
I think he's a writer.
Jerry knows. Oh, he's a writer. That's right. Oh, yeah, he was writing. They met him at NBC.
Yes.
Thank you. That's right. You're correct. I'm gonna look up his name because I feel bad now. Peter Crombie, the actor known for playing Crazy Joe Davola on Seinfeld, has died. He was 71. He died on the morning of January 11th, following a short illness.
Oh man. Well, rest in peace, man. Obviously, rest in peace.
Absolutely.
One of the great. Well, I mean, and the thing is, I think Joe Davola was only like in 2 episodes or 3.
I know, but he lasts. Wouldn't that be weird if he showed up at the finale in the court?
I know. Why wasn't he there? I wonder.
I do know. So comedy and scary horror can mix, like in the movie Clue. And we're back.
If I had last thing, if I had to ask you, how many episodes of Seinfeld do you think Wayne Knight was in? So there are 180 episodes of Seinfeld. How many do you think had Newman?
His presence is felt, but I'm going to say, because you're asking, it's probably like 30, 40.
It's 45.
45, okay. But he even has, famously, he's got the one where Elaine's Christmas card, where all he does is walk in and they show him the card and he goes, yeah, you can see her nipple. And is that it? And they go, yep. And then he leaves.
Yeah.
And that's what Wayne Knight came in to do that week.
Incredible.
Not
now,
bad.
there was
an episode, got killed by a Dilophosaurus.
I do think there was Barbasol. Let's get into the minute. So we pick up here with Bill Henderson still inspecting the house with Mr. Green.
Terrible cop. Terrible cop.
He's still a bad cop, but still a great guy. Seems like a great guy.
Sure. You can be a bad cop. Well, that's not true. I was going to say you could be a bad cop and a good guy, but you probably should be a good cop if you're a good guy.
Yeah, you could be a good cop. Well, no, I guess they are mutually.
You could be a good cop and you're right. No, that's true.
No, it'd
be like being a bad pilot.
Yeah.
You have to be a good pilot to be a good person. And you have to be a good cop to be a good person. If you're a bad cop, you're a bad person, I think. I don't want to get weird.
I don't want to get weird, but it seems right. Like if you're well, like the thing is, like those are one of the jobs that you can't be bad at and be in it.
Yeah, it's kind of like I think Chris Rock has their whole bit about that. Like you can't have they go, well, some bad apples. Like you can't have a bad apple.
Yes, you can't have some jobs. You can't have bad apples.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's where I got the tie into the pilot. Like you can't have bad apples flying planes.
Right. It's a great, you can't have a bad apple who's a heart surgeon.
Right. And Bill Henderson's cop is not a bad apple. He's just not good as a police officer. And and then later we do find out he's on the take. So he's bad morally as well.
He is
but
bad.
I think he probably didn't need to pay him all that much because he's not very observant. He does take like a good 20 minutes to observe a car off the side of the road. He doesn't, when people are slamming doors, he doesn't think that's suspicious. The only way he knows how to get out of a locked room is to yell murder, which gives us the line, what do you mean murder? And then he's like, it's just saying that to, I'm a jokester. He thinks he's funny and he's not. So that's also a bad quality in a person. And then he doesn't notice Mrs. Peacock's hands coming from the curtains, still holding her purse, by the way. She is clinging to that purse this entire movie. She never sets her bag down.
She's
when she's got her arms going up and down, mustard, purse, right hand.
I'm still kind of like thrown off by a lot that we saw here. And yeah, that is a good question. Okay. What's in the purse? That's actually a really great observation. But here's what I don't get. Okay. Why did they have to? Why was Mustard holding the cook's eyes open?
Eyes open? That's true. Here's my theory on that, and I never thought about it until just now. Mustard probably doesn't make out a lot. And he doesn't realize that people do close their eyes when they kiss. So I think that shows his lack of intimacy with another human being, that he thinks, okay, it's just hands, and I better keep the eyes open. But he also, we know, goes to brothels regularly, thanks to Miss Scarlet, and maybe he's a weirdo that wants them to keep their eyes open.
Okay. You know what? Everyone's
Look
got
at
their
me.
thing. Everyone's got their thing.
Everybody's got their thing. Now we know mustards. Look at me.
Now, do you feel like this is a convincing job that they're pulling off here?
Absolutely.
Well, no. Let me say this.
Totally convinced.
I'm talking, when I say they, I mean pronouns, pal. I mean Mrs. White, Mr. Body,
And Mr. Body.
the cook.
That one's pretty good.
I think Mrs. White and Mr. Body is pretty good. The cook and mustard situation, bad.
No. Terrible. I think that totally checks in with Mrs. White's character. I bet she's done this before.
Well, you know what? I'm going to read
She's
a
had
draft
to
from the original script here
hide the
shortly,
body.
and you'll.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. So I think they do go to separate rooms. This all seems to be Miss Scarlet's idea, because she says, make it look convincing. This is her plan. But I think they split up, and this is like Mrs. White's room. She's in charge of this. And then Miss Scarlet and Plum and the motorist go to the other one. And Plum, we'll get to that, but Plum doesn't seem to have a problem with any of this plan. Notice he doesn't pick a dead body. He's like, I'll go with you, Miss Scarlet.
Yeah. So when we go to Plum, now I will say, so this whole scenario in the room that we start off with Mr. Green observing with the cop, with the 4, or I guess 5, 3 people, 2 corpses, 5.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. I think that I'm going to give them a letter grade of a C-. I think that really the cook really brings it down for me, but I do think Mrs. White and Mr. Body were very convincing. Now, if we go over to the other room where the motorist, Miss Scarlet, and Professor Plum, they get an A+. They get an A+.
Oh, yeah.
Very
definitely.
convincing.
It's good that he saw them last, because then he gets to have the conversation. Although I think Professor Plum is very giddy in this scene, and we only saw his first line, and next week we'll hear the rest. But he kind of goes out of his way almost to screw it up with his, like, trying to be clever and kind of showing off to Miss Scarlet that, like, I'm saying things that could screw us up. And she has to, like, smack him. That's next week. But she smacks him like, shut up.
Well,
doofus. But he's like, now this is, and while we were watching the clip right before we started recording, I think I said, I think this might be Christopher Lloyd's best scene in the movie, because he's kind of just like a nerdy dude throughout the whole movie, kind of quiet, especially for Christopher Lloyd. And in this one, he's kind of silly. And we kind of get a glimpse of him in his element. It's almost charming. So you can see how he could be charming to patients, I guess. Because his success rate with what he does is pretty good, I guess. It's enough to be blackmailed for.
Enough to be blackmailed for. But now, the other thing with this...
A+, yeah.
Yes, I think it's an A+. Now, I have another question. The cop says he goes up to the motorist, smells his breath, which was a good call for them to give him some liquor beforehand. And he says a phrase that I think I've only heard in this movie. He's dead drunk. Is this a phrase that is thrown out a lot?
No, I've never heard that either. This is not Search Me. Go back and listen to past episodes of this podcast, ladies and gentlemen, where Brad learned the phrase "search me." That is a phrase. No, dead drunk is just for the pun, the humor, I guess, of the scene. The fact that he's dead. Wink, wink.
This man is drunk. He's dead drunk.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've never heard that before.
Have you ever been in a bar and you looked at somebody and go, oh my gosh, that guy's dead drunk? No, if anything, I guess if they pass out, that's dead drunk, but that's just passed out.
Watch us be wrong. Watch this be like a thing that people say.
I've watched us be wrong more than once, so it wouldn't be a huge surprise. I'm looking forward to the script. I know you've got it sitting right
I have a couple things to read. Now, dead drunk is in Merriam-Webster. It's an adjective.
Okay.
So drunk as to be unconscious or unable to move. The plural is dead drunkenness. That doesn't sound plural.
That's a condition.
It says plural, dead drunkenness. That doesn't sound right. So maybe this is a wrong Merriam-Webster. Now, I will say there's also a movie that came out in 2007. The name of the movie, Dead Drunk.
Right.
At Chick's Bar, hangovers can be killer.
Okay, so again, it's only used for the double meaning. No one says that. I mean, we could start it in 2024.
Now, there's a game called Dead Drunk. Well, hold on. There's more here.
Oh.
There is a movie. Let's see. This is a book written by Paul Garrigan named
Paul G.
Dead Drunk. Swing myself. Something. I can't read the title actually because it's like very blurry.
Because you're dead drunk.
Swing myself from alcoholism in a Thai monastery is what I'm reading. Dead Drunk is a moving and powerful story of a teenager who lost himself to alcohol addiction after the breakdown of his parents' marriage. Okay. Now, and last...
I love comedies.
And last thing,
sounds hilarious.
There's a Turner Classic Movies. There's Dead Drunk, the Kevin Tunnel story that came out in 1993, a dramatization of the true story of 17-year-old Kevin Tunnel who killed a woman when he was driving while intoxicated. So
it only applies when someone is actually dead.
Yes. So I think that this is still a contrived phrase for the benefits of the scene.
Yeah. Just for comedy. Movies are fake.
There was a James Bond movie, Die Another Day. It was Pierce Brosnan's last. Halle Berry was the co-star. And
is that the one with the surfing down the mountain?
Yes. Kite surfing a tsunami.
Oh, classic.
And the Ice Palace and the
somebody should write a book about James.
They should. Now,
Adam Sandler.
In the movie, there's a scene where like James Bond, he's been getting tortured, right? And he's now the MI6 has him back. He's in the hospital. His heart flatlines or something. I think that we're to believe that he made his heart flatline so that they would come in and the doors would open, right? And he could, because they go to shock him, and then he takes the shock paddles and shocks the doctors. And a nurse gives him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation right before this moment. This is the reason I bring it up. After he, it's a beautiful nurse because why wouldn't it be? And
sure.
So she kisses him or like gives him a mouth-to-mouth, and then he wakes up, shocks the doctors, and as he's walking out, he looks at the nurse and he says, "Thanks for the kiss of life." And I go, I don't think that's a phrase.
No, they got really lazy on the last Pierce Brosnan.
Thanks for the kiss of life. I'm like, you Irish devil.
Send us your better lines for that scene. What's a better one-liner for if you jumped up after getting mouth-to-mouth from a beautiful nurse? Better than kiss of life.
There's got to be a better one.
There's got to be something better. Much better ones.
So if I throw, and
we could go on and on about that, but we should go probably back to Clue. But I like it.
Let me go to the original script. Oh, but the other thing I wanted to say is, so he says, "Dead drunk," and then Miss Scarlett says, "Dead right." Funny, good. I liked it. Okay. Yeah. I think Chris Lloyd's character starts to take it a step too far when talking about driving, but I think we can pick it up.
Exactly.
We can pick that up.
He's like, we could do. Mm-hmm. That's next week. But yes, definitely for sure. He's like, oh, is this what we're doing?
Yeah, allow me
Typical Professor Plum, taking it too far.
Taking it one step too far. Now, here is the original script here before we wrap things up. It says, interior study. The lights are off. The radio is playing softly. I ain't got no body. is the name of the song that's playing.
Ah, interesting. Because that is actually, someone sent a, who put it up? One of our wonderful Cluevians. Now I feel bad, I don't remember. There, if you pause it on the do a screenshot of the record, because they show a close up of it, the record does say "I Ain't Got No Body." It does not say "Shaboom." So I at first thought, oh well, that's just a little wink, wink. There's nobody in the study. But maybe that was originally supposed to be the song. Interesting. It's pretty on the nose.
It is on the nose, but I wonder, like, could they not have gotten the rights to it or something? Was there a rights issue? Was there a clearance problem?
I'm just imagining David Lee Roth back in the 80s. He did a cover of that, and that would be a bad 80s choice if they decided in the middle of Clue to cut to David Lee Roth's "I Ain't Got Nobody."
They should have put David Lee Roth in the Lee Ving role.
He could have played an excellent. Okay. Now, next week we will talk about different 80s musicians that could have played Mr. Body.
I like
David Lee Roth is at the top. Weird Al Yankovic, I think, was an actual name actually written down, but considered. But that would have been silly.
Yeah.
But now Weird Al Yankovic is a Golden Globe winner for his best, his biopic won Best TV Movie.
Did it really?
Weird, the Al Yankovic story, which if you haven't seen it, folks, even if you're not a Weird Al fan, which shame on you if you're not, but it's a really good parody of musician biopics, kind of like Walk Hard, but and the cameos are insane. Jack Black's in it. Daniel Radcliffe plays Weird Al, and he's amazing. Rainn Wilson is Dr. Demento. It's
Conan O'Brien's in it.
Yeah.
On my podcast, The Collection, you can find the interview I did with the director of that movie, Eric Appel. Really,
cool.
Yeah, really fun chat with him, and it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. Now, okay, so it says the cop switches on the light. On the sofa, Mrs. White is sitting on the knee of the dead Mr. Body. She is kissing him on the mouth. His hand is placed inside the top of her dress, and with her other hand, she's moving his hand around her back. The cop sees this, and his eyes turn to another couple. The cook is standing up in the corner. Her arms are around Colonel Mustard, and he appears to be kissing her. The cook's hands are moving through his hair. From a new angle in the corner, we see that the cook's hands are behind her back, and Mrs. Peacock is concealed behind the cook, and it is Mrs. Peacock's hands which are caressing Colonel Mustard. The cop turns to Mr. Green, who is watching open mouth. Cop: "It's not all that shocking. Folks are just having a good time." He leaves the room, followed by Mr. Green. Mrs. Peacock comes out from behind the dead cook. She is looking demented. Mrs. Peacock: "Oh my God!" Mrs. White stops kissing Mr. Body. Mrs. Peacock: "How could you kiss that thing?" Mrs. White shrugs. "It's like kissing my first husband." Mrs. Peacock nastily: "Before or after you cut his head off?"
Okay. It's a good line.
Good line. Interior of the lounge. Miss Scarlett is pouring brandy into the mouth of the dead motorist. The cop and Mr. Green cross the hall and open the lounge door. Mrs. Scarlett and Professor Plum are in an embrace. The motorist is now lying back in a chair, his head injury not visible from the front. Half-empty bottle of brandy has his fingers curled around it. The cop enters. Miss Scarlett and Professor Plum separate. The cop eyes them. Mr. Green is still open mouth. Cop: "Excuse me." He sees the motorist and crosses over to him. He sees the bottle. He bends down to sniff his breath. Cop: "He's drunk. Dead drunk." Miss Scarlett nodding. "Dead right." The cop shakes the motorist. The bottle slips onto the floor. The motorist, not surprisingly, doesn't wake up when shaken. The cop bends down toward his ear. Cop: "I hope you're not going to drive home." Professor Plum: "He won't be driving home, officer." Cop: "Someone will give him a lift." And then, okay, well, this is going to come back into the next minute, but that we'll just leave it right there. So that's kind of the difference.
Okay.
It's kind of the difference there.
All right.
Little difference, little more dialogue.
Very little. I like the Mrs. Peacock takes a dig at Mrs. White, because so much in the movie you see those two just in the background and that they don't like each other. They're, like when they accidentally hug when Yvette's shooting at the door, and then they like push each other off because they're disgusted. But you really don't see them like talk to each other ever in the movie. So that's kind of fun. It totally would have killed the momentum. So I get why they cut it, but that's pretty funny.
Well, because you made an allusion earlier to this doesn't seem like maybe the first time Mrs. White has done this, and I think that her kissing a dead body, she shrugs and she's like, "It's like kissing my first husband."
Right.
I don't know. Was that a joke on his lack of romantic and sexual effectiveness?
Right.
Or was it a joke on the fact that he was dead too?
I think he was dead. I can assure you that.
Oh, great Scott. I'm not sure. But I think that this scene is a really fun one because it also shows the camaraderie between these people who find themselves in this position of, hey, let's all work together in this moment. And even Mr. Green's going along with it when he seemed like he was going to be outing everybody. Interesting choice of words, but like he was going to be, what's the word?
He was ready to confess, and I'm going to tell him, and I didn't do it, and so you're all in trouble. And then when it's a cop, he changes his mind. It's kind of like, when your family, your family all like fight and hate each other, but when someone from the outside comes in and like attacks the family, you're like, no, we're a unit. And now the game pieces are one unit.
Yes.
Just trying to get that cop out of there.
They're one unit. They are together. And I, for one, Jeff, I like seeing the camaraderie here because it is an interesting situation. And as a viewer, because I'm still trying to figure out, are we supposed to like the characters? Because this scene makes me like them.
Yeah.
Especially Miss Scarlet.
Cop.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a good leader. That's why it would be very interesting if somebody, and I'll put this out there for any Cluevian or Clue fan out there, because I've talked on other times that if you ever wanted to do a reboot of Clue, it would be interesting to do like a show like on Paramount Plus or whatever, where you actually just do like an episode of their backstory that leads, and then the last episode leads into the house. So you have the Miss Scarlet episode, you have the Corona Mustard episode. I would, of all the characters, it would be very interesting to see a day in the life of Miss Scarlet, and not just for the shock value, but just because she's like this savvy businesswoman in the 50s. That has a cop on payroll and has got weird Yvette that she can make her do whatever she wants and then dispose of her. And there's a lot going on with her. I think some of the other characters, Professor Plum doesn't have that much going on. He's just pervy. But Miss Scarlet, I think, is probably one of the most interesting characters, and I think a lot of that also comes from the performance of Leslie Ann Warren that she brings to it. That's that strength, and like she could very easily have just been like this, sexy bombshell kind of character, and there's way more to her than that.
That's why I'm sitting here trying to think of like who, like not in the 80s, because my actress frame of reference there isn't as probably vast as yours is, but I'm trying to think of people in the current day who could really fill that role of Miss Scarlet, because you have to, because Leslie Ann Warren was able to pull off being all the things, right? Smart, conniving, sharp, sexy, beautiful, desirable, intellectual superior,
and funny but not silly. There's nothing silly. Like totally. The character's very funny, but it's not like a comedic performance. Because if you think of someone like now, like Emma Stone is very great and very funny, but she's almost too funny for
maybe a little
that
too funny
part.
She's not a bad choice
great,
though, but she might be a little too funny. And like what's her name? Jennifer Lawrence comes to mind as well, but she's almost a little too funny as well. Like a too kind of like
which is. Yeah, it's too like self-aware and too. But I mean, they're all actors; they can do whatever they want. But yeah, it's very unique, and that's an interesting thought too. Like you see that every once in a while, people pop up with today. I would cast Clue today, and you see different. I can't even remember who there was one that just popped up just recently, and I forget who they put as Miss Scarlet. It might have been Emma Stone actually, but Yeah, it's tricky. Like, I don't know if it would be a comedic actress. And Leslie Ann Warren, who is funny, but she wasn't known for, well, she got a Best Supporting Actress nominee for Victor Victoria, which is a very comedic role, but she also wasn't, known for necessarily that.
I just wonder.
Like Michael McKean was only doing comedies at the time. Well, that's not true. Michael McKean played a very not funny dad in Daryl that year. So they were people that could play comedy, but they weren't necessarily it wasn't Robin Williams and it wasn't, John Candy and those kind of actors back then.
So a name, I just did a quick Google to see who people have. Elizabeth Olsen, and I think we've talked about her before as Miss Scarlet.
Oh, okay.
That's not a bad choice.
Yeah, okay.
That's not a bad pick.
She's great. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a bad pick. And there's one more here. Let's see. So this is just a quick recast, and I'm just going to go through this, and then we can wrap up. This is on basilmarinechase.wordpress.com. So take it for what you will. They have Wadsworth being played by Daniel Radcliffe. Actually, not a bad casting.
Going back to the Weird Al Yankovic. Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Mrs. White.
Yeah, you know what? Sorry, real quick. Daniel Radcliffe, talk about someone who could do the rapid fire dialogue. There's a clip of him on Jimmy Fallon where he raps something.
Yeah.
And it's really fast and it's really good. I recommend, if you haven't seen it, YouTube Daniel Radcliffe on Jimmy Fallon and rap. And you'll see that he could do the final scene.
I have no doubt.
Not a lot of people could do.
No, I don't. I could see him doing it clearly.
That's great. Okay, I'm sold on that one.
They have Mrs. White is Aubrey Plaza.
I've heard that before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be Aubrey Plaza playing Aubrey Plaza.
Now here's the okay. Well, hold on. I'm reading this wrong. So he has the popular choice and then his choice. The popular choice for Wadsworth, Matt Berry. I'm not familiar with Mr. Berry, but his choice would be Daniel Radcliffe.
Is Matt Berry? I don't want to say it because I'll sound dumb, but English actor. Of course, he's English. Okay. He was in nothing that I've watched, unfortunately.
Okay, so I don't know who he is either.
I'm sure he's delightful.
Mrs. White, the popular choice, Aubrey Plaza. His choice is Claudia O'Doherty.
He's trying to just be cool and come up with people that
no one's ever heard of.
Normal.
Okay.
Claudia, what is it?
O apostrophe Doherty. Doherty.
Okay. She is from Extraordinary. She was in Long Shot. She was in Trainwreck. Okay.
She's got good stuff going. Let's see. Now, Miss Scarlet, the popular choice, Aubrey Plaza again.
She's playing dual roles.
His choice is Josie Tota.
I think he's making up names.
Josie
Tota. Okay.
Tota.
So Josie Tota is from the Buccaneers. She was on. She's in Champions. She was on Saved by the Bell.
Must be the new one.
Yeah, the new one.
I mean,
we're dealing with young Hollywood now.
I mean, she's a little easy on the eyes.
Okay, that was for what, Scarlett?
Yeah, she's 22, maybe a little young.
I'm gonna make up names now too. I think who should play Mr. Green is Steve Waterbottom. Oh, you don't know who that is? You should. He's pretty great. He did that show, Tear Ducks.
Oh yeah, Tear Ducks. Right.
You haven't watched that one? It's got five seasons. Five seasons.
On Tubi.
The first one. You have to just have to get through the first one. It's tough.
Okay, I'm gonna go through these quickly. Just so we have them.
This is a bonus episode, everybody. We've been away for a while. So
it really is. We're almost at the 45-minute mark. Professor Plum, originally Christopher Lloyd. The popular choice, Keegan-Michael Key. Okay.
Ooh.
I'm not mad at that. His choice.
No.
His choice is equally good. Bryan Cranston.
Going back to Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I like
Keegan-Michael Key's inspired choice.
Yes. I'm so late to the Key Appeal party.
Oh my gosh.
The other night I just went on down the rabbit hole on YouTube because somebody I was talking to suggested I watch a Key Appeal sketch that I had seen about an insult comic that is going like through the audience, and like he's picking people, and then there's a guy that's got like massive burn. He's got massive burn injuries on his face, and the comic just kind of skips him because he doesn't want to do it. And the the guy in the front row with all the burn victims is like, roast me, talk about the burns. And it was very funny. But then 3 hours later, I'm still watching Key and Peele. And one of my favorites is where they pitch Gremlins 2. And it's perfect because it's no exaggeration on the plot of Gremlins 2 and the characters of Gremlins 2. And it's so inside baseball. Like I love it when it's like a weird reference like that, where you're like, I don't know how many people are getting this, but it's kind of like when I watch Psych, and
like, this is for me.
References that I know, I gotta hang out with the creator of Psych, because I've gotten every reference.
Yeah, and y'all both are Disney
really
alum,
and I feel like, oh, that's right. And I feel like, all those years in front of the TV were not wasted because I watched Psych and feel smart. All right, I like both of those, Professor Plum.
Yes.
Who's next?
Yes, and I think in my interview with Steve Franks we talked about Clue. I'm pretty sure we did. Okay, Mrs. Peacock, originally Eileen Brennan, popular choice and a good one, Catherine O'Hara.
Aubrey Plaza.
Catherine O'Hara.
Catherine O'Hara. Oh.
His choice is Niecy Nash. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not mad at either of those picks.
That's interesting.
Niecy Nash is interesting because if you see her in, she had a show called Claws, I believe it was, on TNT or TBS. She was really good in that. She was really good in Never Have I Ever on Netflix. I like her. And then Catherine O'Hara's phenomenal. Wow. I mean, at everything. Mm-hmm. Not a bad choice. Okay, let's keep going here. Colonel Mustard, the popular choice, Nick Offerman. I see that.
It kind of looks like him. Like, he looks like Martin Mull. That makes sense.
Okay, well, now his choice, Diane Morgan. So
gender swap.
Gender swap here. Huh. Okay. We're gonna keep going.
I've heard Bill Hader in one of these. Is Bill Hader like a Green, or is he on the list?
He's not on this list. Mr. Green is the popular choice for Mr. Green, according to this gentleman, is Ryan Reynolds. Wow. Ryan Reynolds is Mr. Green. I see it.
That makes sense because he's been tied to the Clue reboot from the very beginning. So if you got to put him in something.
Now he's also
that's the one that's most Ryan Reynolds, I guess.
And I recognize this actor's name. He says his choice is Martin Freeman.
Oh,
yes. I know exactly who it is. He's in the MCU and he's in Sherlock, the BBC Sherlock series. It was really good. He's been in a lot of good stuff. I can see that.
He is in The World's End.
Okay.
The Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg, and he was in The Hobbit.
So
yeah, for Green, yeah. Okay.
We just got a couple more, but this is funny. I think this guy might have a proclivity for a certain actress. For Yvette, his choice, or the popular choice rather, Aubrey Plaza.
Okay.
His choice, Henry Cavill. Kind of the Ghostbusters Superman kind of thing where they put Thor as the.
Well, that worked out so well. Let's not do that. Let's not do that. I guess we talked before in the past about could you do Yvette now and how would Yvette be? Mm-hmm. But I think if you're going to do it, I would do it exactly the same. And just now, absolutely. With today's eyes, you would go, oh my gosh, this is so over the top.
And then our final one is Mr. Body. The popular choice, he says, is Ryan Reynolds.
David Lee Roth. Oh.
I don't like Ryan Reynolds as Mr. Body because you're kind of taking away what makes him great. Mm-hmm. It was just the target.
Yeah, he'd come in and go, all right, what we have here is a bunch of weapons. weapons. Would you like to open the weapons? Would you like to see what you got? Kill Harry Potter. I'm sorry, I meant Wadsworth.
His choice, okay, inspired, but still a different lane. His choice to play Mr. Body is Taika Waititi.
And I go back to IMDb.
You know Taika. Taika's a director.
Yeah.
But he's also
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I know who he is. Yes.
He did the Thor, last couple Thors. He did
yeah.
What was the one about like the imaginary Hitler?
Jojo Rabbit.
Jojo Rabbit. He did Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Mr. Body's tough because you can't be too personable.
You know, somebody
unless the idea was to like do a total switch where you think Mr. Body is going to be like the big bad villain and nobody knows that he dies in the first 5 minutes. Like if you cast somebody huge as Mr. Body and then you're like, oh well, I'm going to go see the new Ryan Reynolds movie and then he dies.
Well, what I was about to say is, do you remember the movie The Other Guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg?
Oh, where Samuel Jackson,
Sam Jackson and The Rock.
Yeah. That was great.
It was well done. It was phenomenal. Yeah. I love that scene where they just look at each other and aim for the bushes, and they just
and that's it. But Gruber comes to mind too, with all the pro wrestlers coming in to save the day.
Mm-hmm. So there's some we could go high. You could cast somebody like Kevin Hart.
Want to do.
Or even The Rock could be in that role.
Or The Rock.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Someone very big and menacing, and this is gonna be a problem. And then they decide, well, we'll take out The Rock real quick.
Or
it would make more sense.
You know what would be fun too? Is just to throw just to do it. Give it to Sly or Arnie. You know what I mean? Give it to Arnold or Sylvester Stallone.
Sure.
In
this bag we have weapons.
We have the weapons.
You must kill Wadsworth. Do it now.
Do it now. Put the cookie down. There's a lot of ways you could go. But like Sly, by the way, I think is having a nice little renaissance here because have you seen Tulsa King?
No.
He's great, man. He's great in Tulsa King. And obviously he was great in the first Creed movie, which came out now several years ago, but Sly's still.
And Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Guardians.
In that, and then Expendables 4, which I guess we shouldn't talk about because nobody is.
I didn't see it.
No, nobody has, but
I haven't seen one Expendables.
He's barely in it. No, they are literally expendable.
But I did see The Beekeeper with Jason Statham, and I actually really recommend it. So fun.
Really? Do you have a Jason Statham impression?
I don't. I wish I did, but
Kevin Pollak has a very good.
I interviewed Josh Hutcherson, who was in the movie as the bad guy. He's from the Hunger Games series, and I also interviewed David Ayer, who's the director of the movie, who also did Suicide Squad and Fury and a couple other things. I really like The Beekeeper, man. Like if I'm in all honesty, it's not a movie I would typically seek out, but watching it, I was like, oh, it's Die Hard. It's Lethal Weapon. It's Death Wish. It's all those kind of movies. It's really good, man. Anyway, well, Jeff, I think that we've talked enough.
Oh boy, we covered all kinds of things and Clue. But this was fun, and everybody and your wonderful 5-star reviews. Thank you. And if you want to recast Clue while you talk about it, go for it. I mean, let's get nuts with some of this casting. I really do like the idea next week of doing 80s rock star Mr. Body. I'm going to make some notes and actually prepare for next week.
I'm going to prepare as well. I also have a couple people who are experts in the realm that I'd like to reach out to and get their consensus on. Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite 80s rock band?
Well, My favorite rock band of all time is Aerosmith, who were big in the late 80s when they came back.
Mainly a 70s group.
Not being great.
Yeah.
Mostly known for the 70s, but then they came back like in the late 80s, and their album Permanent Vacation, that dude looks like a lady, and Ragdoll and Angel. And then Pump was 89, and that had Love in an Elevator, and JD's Got a Gun, and The Other Side, and What It Takes. And so that was a big resurgence in the late 80s and early 90s of Aerosmith. As far as like bands that you would only put in the 80s, I back then was a big fan of hair metal.
Mm-hmm, sure.
So I can talk all about Poison and Skid Row and Warrant and Slaughter and all those great bands that most of the lead singers are dead now, and they still tour. Great White, White Snake.
I was waiting
a lot
for
of
the
white
Snake.
people.
There was another white band, right?
Great White, White Snake, and
who sang Cherry Pie?
That's Warrant.
That's Warrant sang Cherry Pie?
Yeah, Warrant did Cherry Pie, and Janie Lane, the lead singer of that band, is dead.
How come you haven't mentioned Motley Crue? Yeah.
There you go. See, I knew what you were going to say. Motley Crue. Which now, if you are a Motley Crue fan and haven't seen them lately, do not look up Motley Crue live, because Vince Neil is not doing well. He sounds terrible.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, he had a real high register. And the older you get, that's harder to hit.
Well, it's kind of like you watch Bon Jovi now, and they do Living on a Prayer. And at the end, it goes super high. And now John Bon Jovi, he takes the mic and he goes, we're halfway there. And he goes, takes the mic, points it at the audience,
Genius.
like, you guys, you cover this. And then they do the, whoa. And then he just goes on. It's, who did I see? Somebody, I think from the 80s was it was Enrique Iglesias. There's a video of him now where he's basically just pointing to the audience the entire time and saying, you do it, to the point where people got a little annoyed. Like, is he gonna sing at all? So
now,
Enrique Iglesias, I don't think it's doing that well either.
Let me add, because we might as well have a couple more minutes on this one, because this
go
is
for it.
fun.
Yeah, let's go. Let's hit 60.
We'll hit 60 now. Going back to some of the 80s, do you consider Kiss an 80s band?
No, I would say 70s.
You say late 70s, because Alive. When did because Alive and Alive 2, I felt like that was like right at the turn. Now, I think
it's like 77. I think
technically, the Brian Johnson iteration of AC/DC is an 80s band.
Yes,
it's Back in Black,
definitely,
is 1980.
Because Back in Black is 80 on the dot. Kiss Alive is 1975, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So depending on your AC/DC, Bon Scott is definitely 70s, and Brian Johnson is 80s, and then they had Thunderstruck and all that was 90s.
In the 90s,
so and then they were a big part of the soundtrack of Last Action Hero.
Well, I'll tell you. So when I was, because I had Brian Johnson on my podcast.
Yeah, famously.
Yes,
mate.
And then he called me a bonny lad, which I'm not sure if I think it's good. He goes, "Oh, Brad, what lucky to talk to you, me bonny lad," which is just what you want from a Brian Johnson introduction. Hello.
Does not disappoint.
Everything I wanted. But I remember listening to a lot of AC/DC going up, leading up to the interview. I just wanted to kind of be in the mindset. And I know it's a popular hit, but You Shook Me All Night Long, I think is the greatest Brian Johnson AC/DC song. Like, I just feel like it's the best one. I like it more than Thunderstruck. I like it more than Back in Black. I like it more than a lot of those records.
Yeah.
And
she told me to come. I was already there.
Like,
what was she talking about?
And I asked him, I was like, that song to me is the best, like, especially, like, I said the whole song, but especially, like, the opening riff through the first verse and the hook. I don't think you can find, I told him, a better 90 seconds in, like, rock history of just awesomeness, right? And what was surprising to me is he said that was the first song they wrote and recorded as him being a member of the band.
Oh, wow.
Angus Young, brought him the riff. And he said, write some lyrics to this. And Brian Johnson didn't have an idea of what to write. He goes, but the only thing I knew about, and I'm doing a terrible Brian Johnson. He's like, but the only thing I knew about was girls and cars, so that's what I started writing about. And then I said, when you said you had the sightless eyes telling me no lies, knocking me out with those American thighs. He goes, well, let me tell you something, Brad. I'd never seen an American. He said, I'd never seen an American girl before that moment, but I would see them on the telly. And I thought, I got to get to America. And so
Got to see those thighs.
I got to see those thighs. Oh man, what a great go! I know I've plugged the podcast a few times, but go to the collection, listen to my chat with Brian Johnson. Just so good, such a great dude, man.
Yeah.
And you know what he told me before the interview? Because I was the first one he did that day for his book, and he goes, "I'm a bit nervous." I'm like, "Why are you nervous?" He goes, I don't do things on my own. I normally have a band behind me, And I'm like,
what an honest, little fun moment.
Yeah, I'm like, you're gonna be fine, Brian.
Yeah, you had to talk down Brian Johnson of AC/DC. Brad Gilmore's like
thousands of people.
Yeah, right. But he doesn't. He's nervous about talking to the boat.
I'm making people nervous, Jeff. Typically,
that's right.
But we'll do our casting of Mr. Body next week. This has been a fun edition. Look, we just decided to hang out with y'all for an hour. Just hang out.
Right. If you don't like it, you can just give us a Gaelic shrug and move on.
Give us a Gaelic shrug and move on. Move on like Mrs. White does from her husband. Just move on.
Right. Yeah.
Jeff Smith.
The one you cut their head off? Brad Gilmore.
Cluedoc.com.
Movie podcast. Oh, Cluedoc. Oh, yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, there's a documentary.
Yes, and you can find me at Brad Gilmore. Check out all the stuffs on the boat, bradgilmore.com, all the things. And we're going to be back with
We have a new champion.
We're going to be back next week with minute 63.
For sure.
Of Clue the Movie podcast.
I can assure you of that.
I can assure you of that. Great Scott, Jeff Smith. And we'll see you then. Clue the Movie podcast.
All right.